Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the problems in problem set 2. For the first part, you were to identify what the crossover of the test signal is, which you'll remember is the level of the test signal minus intraoral attenuation. Part B requires you to say whether or not there's cross-hearing, which is detection of the tone by the cochlea of the non-test ear. And then Part C, you have to determine whether or not you need to go and mask in order to obtain threshold in the test ear. So first I say consider the air conduction threshold of the right ear at 500 Hertz. And if the threshold was obtained using supraoral phones, first, let's look and see at 500 Hertz, the air conduction threshold of the right ear is 50 dBHL. So if that was obtained using supraoral phones, we know that the intraoral attenuation is 40 dBHL. So in order to figure out the crossover, we take the presentation level of that signal, 50 dBHL, minus intraoral attenuation, which is 40 dBHL, and that would give us a crossover for 1A of 10 plus 10 dBHL. Now part B asks whether or not there's cross-hearing. Well, level of the signal being delivered to the non-test ear, the cochlea of the non-test ear, is 10 dB HL. We have to think about what the sensation level of that would be, and in order to do that, look at what the threshold is of the cochlea in the left ear at 500 Hertz. And the unmasked threshold, which we're going to assume is from the better ear, which we'll know is from the left ear, the unmasked threshold is minus 5 dBHL. So that means that the cochlea of the non-test ear is receiving a plus 15 dBSL signal because it's coming in at 10 dBHL given intraoral attenuation, and the threshold of that ear, that cochlea, is minus 5. So is there cross-hearing? Yes, there most certainly is cross-hearing given the plus 15 dBSL sensation level of that signal. Masking would be needed. We'd have to put masking in the left ear. Of course, we deliver masking through air conduction. We'd have to put masking in the left ear in order to get an accurate air conduction threshold for the right ear. 2 says consider again the air conduction threshold of the right ear, which is again 50 dBHL. What if air conduction thresholds were obtained using insert earphones? Well, in this case, the intraoral attenuation of insert earphones is 70 dBHL. So we'd have 50 dBHL. Again, if that was crossing over and the intraoral attenuation is 70 dBHL, 50 minus 70 is negative 20 dBHL. So that's much lower, much less intense than the threshold of the left ear's cochlea. So there would not be cross-hearing because it would be presented now at a minus 15 SL, minus 15 decibels sensation level. So there would not be cross-hearing as the level of the signal, taking into account intraoral attenuation, would be lower than that or less than that of the left ear's cochlea's threshold. So masking, of course, would not be needed as there's not cross-hearing. Now let's look at the air conduction threshold of the right ear at 4,000 Hertz. That's 20 dBHL. If we go up to 4,000 Hertz and we see it takes the level of the signal to be 20 dBHL in order for it to be detected at least 50% of the time. What is the crossover, the test signal? Again, first using supraoral phones, that would be 20 minus the 40 dBHL of intraoral attenuation. Again, minus 40 dBHL is the intraoral attenuation of supraoral phones. That would be negative 20 dBHL reaching the non-test ear, the cochlea of the non-test ear. we can see that the threshold of the cochlea in the left ear is 0, so the level of the signal reaching the left ear's cochlea is less than or below that of the threshold, the ear's threshold, via bone conduction. So there is not cross-hearing. It would be a negative 20 dB SL sensation level, so there would not be detection of that signal. Masking wouldn't be needed. Now, number 4, of course, if we're not going to hear it at 4,000 hertz via supraoral phones, we certainly won't hear it with insert headphones, as the interoral attenuation is so much greater for inserts. It's one advantage to using them. But just for the sake of the problem, if again the threshold is at 20 dBHL and we're now going to have minus 70, that's our interoral attenuation, that's a negative 50 decibel hearing level that's reaching the other ear. Of course, there's no way that the non-test ear, the cochlea of the non-test ear, is going to detect that, as the threshold is 0, so that would be a negative 50 dB SL. So for 3 and 4, we would not need masking.